Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Clive Wearing? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of Clive Wearing, then offer my analysis. Clive Wearing was born in Britain on May 11, 1938. He worked as a musician, choir director, conductor, singer, and in other areas related to music. He founded an amateur choir in 1968, which was very successful. He was actively involved in the opera and worked for the BBC. On July 29, 1981, the day that Prince Charles married Lady Diana Spencer, Clive was responsible for the musical content on BBC Radio for much of the day. In 1983, 44-year-old Clive married a 25-year-old singer from his choir named Deborah. This was Clive's second marriage. He had children from his first marriage, who he stayed in contact with. In March 1985, Clive developed herpes simplex encephalitis. It attacked his central nervous system and caused significant damage to several areas of his brain. The virus passed through the blood-brain barrier, which is a rare event. He developed anterograde amnesia, which meant that he could no longer encode new memories. He also developed retrograde amnesia, meaning he lost his old memories. Clive's hippocampus was damaged. This area of the brain is required to transfer short-term memories over to long-term memories. Clive's short-term memory was still functional. He can only remember events for 30 seconds at the maximum. Some memories are gone in as little as 7 seconds. He had become unable to transfer those short-term memories to long-term. He has no ability to create any new long-term memories whatsoever. Clive was sent to a hospital psychiatric unit where he stayed for 6.5 years. After this, he was moved to a facility for people with brain injuries, which is where he has remained. Deborah left Britain and divorced Clive, but she later returned. The couple was remarried in 2002. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Clive was permanently trapped in a state of waking up. It's like every moment for him was shocking and new. Clive continually believed that he was waking up from a comatose state. This is how he spent all of his time, every day, day in and day out. He was often agitated, but he would quickly go back to being calm because he would forget why he became upset in the first place. Over time, he developed a realization that he was ill, and his anger outbursts discontinued. This waking up experience was most noticeable in Clive's first several years after becoming ill. Here are some different statements that Clive has made that capture the nature of his experience. Clive once said, "Can you imagine one night 5 years long? No dreaming, no waking, no touch, no taste, no smell, no sight, no sound, no hearing, nothing at all. It's like being dead. I came to the conclusion that I was dead." When asked if his existence was hard, Clive responded, "No, it's exactly the same as being dead, which is not difficult, is it? To be dead is easy. You don't do anything at all. You can't do anything when you are dead. It's been the same, exactly." When asked if he missed his old life, Clive said, "Yes, but I've never been conscious to think that, so I've never been bored or upset. I've never been anything at all. It's exactly the same as death. No dreams even. Day and night, the same." Clive was asked what he missed about his old life. He said, "The fact that I was a musician and in love." On one occasion, Clive was holding a piece of chocolate in the palm of his left hand. He repeatedly covered and uncovered it with his right hand. He knew that the piece of chocolate wasn't moving because he could feel it, but he forgot it was there. Every time he moved his right hand and exposed the piece of chocolate in his left hand, he said, "Look, it's new." He was mesmerized. When he was told that it was the same piece of chocolate, he said, "No, look, it's changed. It was not like that before. A few seconds later, he said, "Look, it's different again. How did they do that?" Clive's responses are remarkably consistent. For example, he frequently says things like, "I've never seen a human being before." Item number 2. Clive was supplied a diary after becoming ill. He has been making entries in that diary for decades. Essentially, he repeatedly recorded the experience of waking up for the first time. This is reflected in all of his entries. Here are some examples of his diary entries. 2:10 p.m., this time properly awake. 2:14 p.m., this time finally awake. 2:35 p.m., this time completely awake. At 9:40 p.m., I awoke for the first time, despite my previous claims. I was fully conscious at 10:35 p.m. and awake for the first time in many, many weeks. When Clive would make a new entry, he would cross out the last entry that he made. The diary is full of entries that have lines through them. Clive believed that those old entries must have been incorrect, but he acknowledged that they were made in his handwriting. Clive even wrote the phrase, "despite my previous claims." Again, he knew that he was the one making those claims about being awake. There are thousands of entries like this. Again, he was trapped in the cycle where everything was new every few seconds. I have to wonder about what Clive may have realized. Did he ever put the puzzle together, if even just for a second or two? Like, did he look at all those crossed out entries saying the same thing and think to himself, "I'm losing my memory every few seconds"? That's the most logical explanation for all these entries that I've made. Of course, if he ever had this realization, it would be terrifying. He would be aware of the nature of the prison that he is in. When his memory faded in a few seconds, of course, the memory, along with this new discovery, would be gone. Item number 3. Clive has some long-term memories, but not many. All of his existing memories are from before he became sick. He has a general idea about some things, but he cannot remember any specific event. For example, he knows that he is married, but he cannot remember the wedding. He knows that he has children from an earlier marriage, but can't remember their names. When Clive is eating, he can sometimes recall the names of various foods. He cannot connect those names to what foods taste like. He also forgets what he's eating by the time the food makes it to his mouth. Item number 4. The only person who Clive can remember is his wife, Deborah. He still has affection for her. Every time he sees her, he becomes excited and greets her warmly. He believes that they have not seen each other in years. Clive and Deborah knew each other for 6.5 years before Clive became sick. Clearly, he loved Deborah. It would seem that she was the most important person in his life. Item number 5. Clive has been able to learn a very small number of facts and behaviors. This ability does not come from encoding new memories, but from acquiring procedural memories through repetition. Procedural memory is how people know how to perform certain tasks without ever remembering how they learned the task. For example, Clive has been shown a video repeatedly. He cannot remember ever seeing the video, and he does not know the content of the video, but sometimes he can anticipate certain parts of the content. Clive knows how to shave, put his clothes on, shower, make phone calls, find his way around the place where he lives, and he can even play the piano. But he cannot explain how to do those things when someone asks him. He can learn a new behavior, but not attribute the behavior to the personal memory of some event. The level of acceptance Clive appears to demonstrate about his illness may also be from procedural memory. Which brings me to item number 6. Clive has a sense that something bad happened to him, but he doesn't remember what that was. When he first became ill, he cried for 1.5 months. He was depressed, despondent, and angry. Over time, his mood stabilized somewhat. As I mentioned, this could be due to procedural memory. He has this general sense that something's wrong without knowing how he learned about something being wrong. He must realize at some level that nothing can be done about whatever went wrong. Therefore, accepting it is the only thing he can do. Item number 7. Clive often thinks that his visitors are from the United Nations, Buckingham Palace, or they are the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Like most of his responses, this pattern is remarkably consistent. He comes up with this frequently when he's encountering a visitor. I think that he does this because he somehow senses that his situation is serious and unusual. Like if he woke up from a coma after several decades, it would be a big deal. The British government would send somebody high level to greet him or to investigate. Now moving to my final thoughts. For a person to have both anterograde amnesia and retrograde amnesia is very unusual. Clive was very unfortunate to end up in this situation. It's not something that anyone would ever expect to see. Usually when people are bothered by a traumatic experience, the problem they have is that they remember it. Re-experiencing the trauma in one's mind is painful. The brain focuses too much on one event. It keeps replaying it like a movie. In the case of Clive Wearing, his experience of trauma is not remembering anything at all, forever being trapped in the present moment, a man with no history, no context, no identity, no anchors, no foundation, and no way to think clearly. He cannot construct a future built on the past. All he has is the introduction, the first few notes of the song, the first few lines of a poem, the initial thoughts of a man waking up after decades of slumber. Clive is permanently trapped within the first few seconds of consciousness and sentenced to repeat the experience for the rest of his life. In one sense, Clive is dead because he is only alive for 30 seconds at a time. In another sense, he is alive because of the love he has for his wife, a testament to the importance of romantic relationships and the enduring nature of the feelings attached to them. When Clive lost everything, he did not lose the feeling that he was in love. That was the one thing which could pierce through the fog of his tremendous loss. Those are my thoughts in the case of Clive Wearing. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.